Very good. Okay, thank you very much, Brenton and Simon. I'm very happy to be joining you today. Hey, my name is Glenn Katz. I'm an Education Solutions Specialist for Autodesk, and I imagine Brenton's probably told you that. I work here in the U.S. out of San Jose, California, and I basically spend my time working with faculty and students at universities just all over the U.S. mostly, helping them succeed at applying modeling tools and some of the Autodesk products to do their analysis and things that support them in what they need to do for architectural design studios. So I'm very happy to be joining you today and sharing some of what I know about Ecotect because it's a great product and I think it'll be very, very helpful for you in terms of completing the assignment and just in general continuing with your analysis of buildings and thinking about sustainability as you keep on going on. Let me go ahead and just kind of set up a couple of parameters to get going with, because I know that we don't have the microphone working on that side. Simon, from your perspective, I just wanted to know, are the students going to be following along or just watching? And also, what's the time frame? Because I think we added about an hour and a half, but go ahead and just type in a message, and that'll get my expectations set so I can know how to go. Okay, answer coming through. Okay, very good. So most folks are just following along more in the lecture setting now. In terms of what's going to go on for today's workshop, we'll go ahead and the notes you'll see are actually, well, all the files that I'm using today are going to be available for download just at Dropbox. So you can kind of download it at any time and kind of play along and follow along. Also, I'm actually recording the session too, so we'll make that available to you, and I'll pass that off to you, Simon and Brenton, as well as posting it on YouTube. So, folks needn't worry about kind of getting every last thing down as we go through, because there's a lot of stuff, and some of it goes by a little bit quickly as we start working with the different software products. So don't panic if you kind of get a little bit behind or miss a step. Going back through the videos is actually a really effective way of just backing up and being able to kind of really focus in on some little specific step that you might have missed as you try to apply this to your assignment. Okay, and I see another message. Oh, no worries. No doubt they are very intelligent. So I actually wish I could actually hear your voices, but well, I don't know. Let's go ahead and get started in terms of what's going on. Let me pop out of my little Windows screen here and just kind of give you an overview of where we are going today. Oh, let me get this thing out of the way too. That's going to bother us pretty quickly. Okay, so type in those messages as you need me to slow down or go back over something or whatever it is. The important thing really today is that you get out of it what you need to help you complete the assignment. And you'll find out I'm a very informal, very interactive, interrupt-driven person. So although I have an overall flow of what we want to cover, feel free to kind of jump in at any time with questions, and we'll make sure we kind of dive in and cover anything specifically that you need to see. Okay, so in general, here's the roadmap of where I wanted to go today. And it's really, as we think about Ecotect and how to apply it to the assignment, really thinking about really what Ecotect's good for and how we model in the Ecotect, and then very specifically, some of the things that we need to do to bring in a model from Rhino and use it in Ecotect, because there are some very specific requirements and just ways of looking at models. And just in general, as we're doing BIM modeling, there's always an issue of just how much detail we include, how many surfaces, are walls a single surface or two surfaces, just what level of detail we put into everything. And there's some just real general guidelines we'll give you about how to work with Rhino models and show you how to clean one up as you bring it in. Okay, we're then going to shift our attention over to Ecotect and really look at the notion of, within Ecotect, how we go ahead and accurately set the context. Very important in terms of getting an accurate analysis, to have your location, the right orientation, and the proper climate data. And then we'll kind of think about how we have to kind of clean up the model a little bit for analysis and then perform the analysis. And then for that analysis step, we're going to be looking at a couple main types of analysis related to the things that you'll be looking at in your assignment. We'll be looking at shadows and sunlighting. We'll be looking at solar radiation, daylighting, and also thermal analysis. So I think those are the four big ones. that are necessary for like your assignment. And it's actually read through the assignment. It's a very nice one in terms of looking at these precedence houses and analyzing what they have, doing analysis of their characteristics from a sustainability standpoint, and then making recommended changes. Very similar to something I might try to do like in my own studio at Stanford. So it's looking great there. Okay, is there a message coming through? You're most welcome, Mr. Simon. It's like it's a good assignment. I might have to steal it sometime and use it on in my own classes. So let's kind of take a look at where we're going. Okay, let me start out with the notion of just how we go through and model in Ecotect and get you going with that, because that'll sort of set the stage for how we need to set things up to work in Rhino properly. So what I'm actually going to do is switch over to the Ecotect program. RhinoToEcotectAnalysis 2011 is available to you, and I think most of you probably have it. Actually, Simon, can you confirm that? Do they all have access to Ecotect, or do they need to know where to get it, or what's the current status on that? And as you're doing that, I'm going to try and find Ecotect on my desktop. You'll see I got a cluttered desktop with a lot of things here. Great, it's on all the computers in the lab? Super. Okay, let us kind of take a look at what it is. Ecotect is a very basic modeling environment which really has kind of very primitive modeling tools, but really focuses on the analysis side of things. It is really the best tool available today in terms of getting accurate data back from solar radiation, daylighting. It has a very strong analytical engine behind it. And just so you know which engine is behind it, it's the DOE, so Department of Energy 2.2 engine really drives a lot of the analysis that goes on here. It is really rock solid on the analysis side. You know, what's most important though is really how you model your assumptions and put them into the engine. So if you do a good job in terms of modeling your assumptions, it'll give you computationally very accurate results. But you have to go ahead and kind of make sure that the way things are put into the model are, you know, cohesive and properly attached. For example, one common thing a lot of people will do which gets you in trouble is if you take a very complex model in and you haven't really optimized it, you haven't really kind of simplified it, or maybe you just have holes in your model. A lot of things we do as we're modeling things architecturally don't necessarily have to be complete and totally accurate, in that like they're not always closed surfaces or they're not always contained volumes. When we bring those in and start trying to do the analysis, like a thermal analysis, that'll be very important, because if there's any holes in the surface, heat will leak in or leak out of the building. So we need to go ahead and close some of those things. But let's kind of start with just kind of creating a very basic model, and then we'll take a look at some problem cases and think about how you might go through and fix those. So in this environment, just so you sort of get a general sense of what's going on, let me orbit around a little bit so you can sort of see there's an analysis grid, or just really the overall data grid right now. X, Y, and Z axes. North is facing up right there. With this environment, originally the idea with Ecotect was that you would do your basic 3D modeling here. So there's a series of tools. I'm in the 3D editor tab right now. Series of tools over here for putting planes in, for putting partitions. For example, if I want to go through and put a partition in, I can just start drawing. And as I draw, I'm basically just creating different wall surfaces. Okay. I have just created a very basic box. Now, I'm not going to really spend a lot of time editing it here, because we're going to show you much more about how you edit it in Rhino or edit it in another program, but that's enough to kind of get you going with the notion of there being a basic box. If I visualized it, if I switch over to the Visualization tab, that's actually surprising me right now. I'm surprised that it actually has a closed surface, but you'll see that it actually has just a basic box in there. It looks like it closed it off for me, put a top and a bottom on it. Okay, this basic box is kind of enough to go through and get started. This basic box will go through and cast shadows. It'll do all the things that we'd sort of want it to do. All these different surfaces of the box actually are understood as having different properties. So for example, if I go back to the 3D editor and I choose, for example, let me choose this surface. That's the floor surface. You'll see it's a floor. Let me pull that out so you can see it a little bit better. In terms of the properties palette, it's assumed by default to be a concrete slab on grade. If I switch to this wall surface, let me kind of show you how I'm doing that, because it's a little bit different in Ecotect versus some other tools. If I choose a surface and I hit the space bar, it'll rotate between the different options, the different surfaces that are there at that. Is there something coming through? Okay, we'll switch between there. This is now assumed to be some sort of framed plasterboard partition. Okay, and if we go switching up here to this one at the top, you'll see that's actually considered to be some sort of ceiling. Again, plaster insulation suspended, something like that. Not really great assumptions, but it's something to go ahead and get started with. Now, we could go ahead and do things like a thermal analysis on this box and get ourselves started, but let's go ahead and make it a little more interesting and actually instead go off and grab something that looks better from one of the other analysis programs or one of the modeling programs. For this box, for example, if we wanted to put some windows in it, we could go, for example, and choose this surface. What I did was I space barred to actually select that one surface. Now I can actually use this window tool, which can add a window to that surface. Go ahead and put a window over there. Similarly, I'll put a window on the side surface over there too. So over here, I'll put a window over here. And again, I'm just showing you this because I think it's sort of important to know sort of how Ecotech thinks about the world. You don't have to do this. In general, you're going to be doing all this sort of modeling in the other tools like Rhino. Okay, beautiful. Okay, and if we went through and visualized that, well, I thought it was going to do a good job of showing that to me. Let's see what's going on here. Let me go back to my 3D editor, see what's happening. Oh, in my Visualize tab, I think I'm just being a little bit unaware of the fact that I just need to rotate around. So watch out for that. The views in the visualization and the Visualize tab and the 3D editor are actually independent of each other. So you can get into trouble if you're sort of not seeing things where you think they are. Like that was a little surprising to me. I just needed to orbit around, and then I can get back to the side and see where we need to. So this system, which has those surfaces, has wall surfaces. It also has this thing here, which is now assumed to be a window surface. You'll see it's single glazed timber frame, so a single glazed window with a wooden frame on it. Okay, is enough to go ahead and get ourselves started. And if I visualize, I can do all sorts of things like, turning on shadows, which I could move through time. Okay, please go back a bit. I was trying the little microphone. Okay. How far back? Go ahead and roll me back to sort of where you want me. Oh, no worries. Okay. So let's go back over there. The basic issue is, okay, so we had our little 3D editor. We were we created the basic box. Let me just got to get rid of these little surfaces right now. Let me delete that one and delete this one. So now I'm back to just sort of the basic box. What I've been doing in this last little bit was really just this notion of, can we go through and add windows to this box, just give it a little bit more definition in terms of what's going on. And we can by going to the 3D editor. And the way it basically works, and this is the way we used to do it before we had the ability to import other model files, is we'd go through and choose a surface, something like that flat surface, and we can either put a window in, we can add a void in there, we can add in sort of a panel or a door. So for example, let me go through and put a window in here. I'll do window. And again, I'm not paying very much attention to the dimensions right now. These are all in millimeters, but I'm going to ignore them for right now for the most part, because I'm going to model it in a better environment where I'll have more control. Similarly, I can put a window back on this side. Okay. If I visualize that, you'll see those actually, well, that wasn't a very good job over there at all, was it? Let's go ahead and fix that guy up. You'll find one of the problems in drawing in 3D environments, I think you probably find this in a lot of environments, you have to make sure you're sort of on the right construction plane or on the right work plane. Let me go ahead and delete that guy back out. And let me try again. I must start drawing without actually having things selected properly. Okay, we'll try here. So a good reality check is go to the visualization tab. Hopefully things look like that, and you're seeing kind of nice solid surfaces in terms of what you want to be seeing. Okay, one last thing I'll do in terms of editing here before we go off somewhere else is the notion of, hey, these windows are kind of cool, but what if I wanted to do something like put a light shelf either on the inside of the building or the outside of the building or something like that? And to do that, you can go back to the 3D editor again. And the important thing is just think about how you're going to define it. Is it a plane? Is it a partition? Being a vertical surface? Is it a sloping surface like a pitched roof? I'm going to go ahead and just do a flat surface, a plane. And to do that, what I'll do is I'll come on over here. It really, really helps to actually come right up on the side of things. So actually go to some sort of point that you can snap to. Like there, I think it's going to realize that I'm trying to snap to the side of the window. Come back over here. Okay, and now if I visualize that, nope, looks like I'm even off in there. I'm actually drawing on the floor. That's not very good looking at all. If I was being smart, I'd say this is an object lesson to show you why I don't edit very much within this environment, because it is a little bit hard in terms of what's going on. You know, actually, I think you work with this environment all the time, it's actually an okay environment to be working with. I just don't use it very much. So, I can kind of draw it up here, hooking on the points, because I tend to model in other environments instead, so I'm not as familiar with this environment. Let's see how that one did. Okay, that's looking a little bit better in terms of actually being some sort of shelf. It's a little high up though in terms of what's going on. So what I might do is go back to the 3D editor. I got that thing selected right now. Let me see if I can move it just by moving down. Okay, and that's a little bit better. Okay, again, don't want you to worry about, well, so much for that. I'm just not having a very good time today in terms of demonstrating how to work with this editor. Again, let's choose that guy, let's move him, let's come over here and grab that point. Let's see if I can hook it back up there again. That part's good. Now let me see if I can just bring it straight down. Again, you're never quite sure. There we go. So now I actually have a life shelf that can do some reflecting as well as blocks, do some shading. So if I start messing around, that can actually sort of have the purpose we want. So again, I just want to show you this to show you how you used to get started in terms of modeling things in terms of Ecotect, because what will happen as you bring your models in, especially as you start thinking about making changes from your precedence house to starting to think about some of the interventions you'll want to. A lot of times it'll be easier actually just to make small changes right in Ecotect as opposed to going back to Rhino and making the changes and doing the re-import. Especially if we've had to do a lot of cleanup on your Rhino model to go ahead and make it a nice analysis model, it may be easier to make the changes just right in here. Things like adding windows, subtracting windows, adding light shelves, things like that. So just know that you can edit things here. You don't always have to go back to the source. Okay, that'll make your life a little bit easier. Okay,